There are 4 types of supramundane samadhis in the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. The first one is asampragyata, undistinguished. The second is nirvichara, non-reflective. The third is nirbija, seedless. And the fourth is Dharma Mega, Cloud of Dharma. Dharmamegha Samadhi is one of the most interesting classifications, and it can be found in the 4th book, the Kaivalya Pada, the portion on absoluteness. This is defined as, in verse 429, as one who, due to his or her perfect discrimination, is totally disinterested, even in the highest rewards, remains in the constant discriminative discernment known as Dharma Mega Samadhi. So let me break down this passage for you and show you why this is very significant. The way I would phrase this concept is that Dharma Mega describes the conscious experience of somebody who has attained complete liberation as they live in the world. So not the ultimate state itself, which is nirbija samadhi or kaivalya, absoluteness, but how it's embodied within the jivan mukta, the liberated person in the world after the fact. What this means is that you have permanent, continuous vision of the truth, seeing that all phenomena are transient, unreal, not self, stressful to cling to, and that the only thing that is real is the supreme self, the adhyatma. The end result of this vision is that you have dispassion, vairagya for all things, an absence of craving and self-other duality. In other words, Dharma Mega Samadhi is the peace of knowing that nothing is a real separate object, that there is no such thing as a body, and that there is no self to bind to a body. It's the freedom that comes from this realization. That's my definition, but there's a few concepts I want to unpack for you guys to better understand how I arrived at that. The first is constant discriminative discernment. Discrimination, or discernment, is the important term viveka. In this tradition, or in these sutras, the term really refers to vision of truth, seeing things as they actually are, seeing beyond the veil of phenomena, knowing that they aren't actually real, self-existent things. We know this because verse 226 tells us that uninterrupted discriminative discernment, viveka, is the removal of it, avidya, the ignorance of one's true self. By definition, this means you would have to perceive everything as it truly is, devoid of the concepts our minds overlay on top of them. Now, Satchidananda confirms this in his commentary by saying things like, the real discrimination, viveka, is to tell the original basic truth from the ever-changing names and forms it assumes. If we could remember that basic truth, we would never face disappointment nor get upset over the changes, which means you'd have to be in Dharma Mega Samadhi in order to embody this truth. The next part you need to know is where it describes being disinterested in even the highest rewards. This is actually a reference to the end of book 3, the Vibhuti Pada, the portion on accomplishments, which describes all of the psychic powers you can gain from practicing samadhi or samyama. It's talking about verses 350 and 351, saying that after you've mastered all possible powers gained through samyama, such that you become omnipotent and omniscient, you aren't necessarily at the final goal. You still need to become unattached to that mastery. Hence, verse 351 says, by non-attachment even to that, the siddhis, the seed of bondage is destroyed, and thus follows kaivalya, independence, which is complete enlightenment. This is a good transition into what I meant by complete liberation. In Buddhism, it's taught that there are 4 levels of enlightenment, not necessarily a single final experience. And in the Yoga Sutras, we find a similar thing, but in an implied, cryptic way, which is why in my next video, I'll be explaining the details of what's called nirvichara samadhi. But getting back to the present quote, the reason we know it's about complete liberation is because of the surrounding context. It says that the discrimination is perfect and constant, first of all, and second, the being remains within it, meaning they never reemerge from that state. Second of all, the next verse, 430, tells us that from that state, from that samadhi, all afflictions and karmas cease, which tells us that yes, the being is totally liberated. They are beyond all karmas. In other words, another way we can phrase enlightenment is the cessation of all kleshas and karmas. So as a key side note, the word afflictions is actually referring to the word kleshas, which Satchidananda translates earlier on in the book, verse 2.2, as obstacles, but includes as an alternate definition. This is important to note because the 5 kleshas are what stand in the way of self-realization. They disband completely when you eliminate the ego self. This brings us to my final point about why is this called Cloud of Dharma Samadhi in light of everything I've told you. Dharma, as Swami Satchidananda tells us in the commentary, has extensive connotations in this tradition, but the definition that we want to focus on is similar to Viveka. It's about the truth of reality. You're up on the cloud of enlightenment, and from that place or vantage point, you see phenomena, dharma, exactly as they are. You see the truth. And this is how the term is used in Buddhist philosophy. So guys, that's it about Dharma Mega Samadhi. If you're interested in seeing my next video about Nirvichara Samadhi and the 4 levels of enlightenment, then stay tuned, hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Peace out.